Did you know that a young Polish woman, born into a humble family, received a mission that would transform not only the church but the spirituality of millions around the world? It seems unlikely, doesn't it? Yet, against all odds, Saint Faustina Kowalska became the guardian of a message that transcended time and continents. Her diary, written between daily tasks and moments of intense pain, is now considered one of the greatest spiritual treasures of the 20th century. Now, imagine this. Jesus appears to someone, asking them to reveal to the world a message capable of changing lives, but the request is met with skepticism, criticism, and even prohibitions. Have you ever thought about what it means to persist in something so grand, even when no one believes? Faustina's story is not just about faith. It's about courage, resilience, and the power of a truth that cannot be silenced. In this video, you will discover how Saint Faustina's diary became the center of a global movement instituted by the Vatican itself. We will explore the vision she had, the difficulties she faced, and the impact her revelations still have today. Get ready to dive into a narrative that blends mystery, spirituality, and unshakable faith. And in the end, you will understand how this message can change your life too. Want to know how? Then stay with us, because this story is more than a tale from the past. It's an invitation for the present. Childhood and vocational calling. Helena Kowalska was born on August 25, 1905, in Głogowicz, a rural village in Poland. The daughter of humble peasants, she was the third of 10 children. From an early age, life taught her the value of hard work and simplicity. Can you imagine a childhood where even the basics, like shoes, were a luxury? That's how she grew up, in a home where faith and courage were the greatest riches. Even amidst difficulties, Helena demonstrated a rare spiritual sensitivity. Around the age of 7, Helena had her first significant experience with God. During a celebration at the local church, she felt something she later described as an intimate call. Isn't it fascinating to think that while other children her age were playing, she was already deeply connected to something greater? Yet, despite this early calling, her spiritual journey would not be easy. At 18, Helena decided to follow her heart and dedicate her life to God. But her family did not agree. After all, how could they allow their daughter to leave everything behind without any guarantee of the future? This family resistance is something many of us can relate to. Wanting something deeply but facing seemingly insurmountable barriers. However, Helena did not give up. At 19, after an impressive vision of Jesus, she made a courageous decision and left home to pursue her vocation. Imagine the weight of that decision. In 1924, without money and support, Helena arrived in Warsaw with only a simple bag and unshakable faith. There, she began to look for convents, facing refusals and difficulties. But each closed door seemed only to strengthen her determination. It was as if, in each no, she heard a divine voice whispering, "Continue." Religious life and joining the congregation. Helena finally found her place on August 1, 1925, when she was accepted into the congregation of the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy in Warsaw. There, she adopted the name Sister Maria Faustina, a milestone symbolizing the beginning of a new life. Have you ever stopped to think about what it means to leave everything behind and embrace the unknown? At 20, Faustina did just that, guided by faith that seemed unshakable. Life in the convent, however, was not glamorous. Far from being a preacher or religious leader, Faustina dedicated herself to humble tasks. She was a cook, gardener, and often a gatekeeper. Now, look at this. In a world where success is often associated with status, she found joy in small acts, like sweeping the floor or preparing meals. These ordinary tasks were, for her, acts of love and devotion. During her early years in the congregation, Sister Faustina faced challenges that tested her faith. Imagine someone so young, in a disciplined and often solitary environment. Yet she never complained. For her, every task, no matter how insignificant it might seem, was an opportunity to serve God. This makes us reflect, doesn't it? How often do we fail to see the extraordinary in what seems ordinary? In 1928, at the age of 23, Sister Faustina took her perpetual vows, promising poverty, chastity, and obedience. This was a transformative moment as it symbolized her total surrender to God. But her journey was just beginning. What she didn't know at that moment was that her simple life, far from the spotlight, was about to become a powerful instrument of spiritual change for the entire world. Mystical experiences and visions of Jesus. Sister Faustina's life took an extraordinary turn in 1931, when she was about 26 years old. In her cell at the convent, she had the first of many visions of Jesus. He appeared to her with a striking image: white robes, right hand raised in blessing, and the left touching his chest, from which two rays emanated, one red and the other pale. Imagine the impact of this vision. It was not just a personal experience. It was the beginning of a mission that would transcend time. In these revelations, Jesus presented himself as the King of divine mercy and entrusted Sister Faustina with a task that, to human eyes, seemed impossible: to spread this message of mercy to the world. Think about it. A humble young woman with little formal education receiving such a grand calling. It's as if, throughout history, God chooses the unlikely to achieve the impossible. Jesus emphasized two things in his messages: trust in God's mercy and love for one's neighbor. On one occasion, he told Faustina, "Humanity will not find peace until it turns with trust to my mercy." These words are as relevant today as they were then, don't you think? After all, in a world filled with chaos and divisions, mercy remains an urgent necessity. But the visions did not come without challenges. Sister Faustina faced misunderstanding and even doubts within her own convent. How to explain such supernatural experiences in a practical and disciplined environment? Yet she persevered, trusting that the message was not hers but God's. This unwavering conviction was what kept Faustina steady, even when circumstances seemed to conspire against her mission. Saint Faustina's Diary. Starting in 1934, at the age of 29, Sister Faustina began recording her experiences in a spiritual diary. This was not a simple notebook. It was a work guided by something she described as interior dictation. The result was the famous diary of Saint Faustina Kowalska, Divine Mercy in My Soul. Now, imagine yourself writing about heavenly visions and deep feelings of faith while dealing with daily tasks and difficulties. It's proof of how the ordinary and the extraordinary can coexist. The diary, which has over 600 pages, is an intimate and deeply spiritual account. Faustina wrote it at the request of her confessors and by divine guidance. It is filled with dialogues between her and Jesus, personal reflections, and messages intended for humanity. One of the most touching passages says, "The soul that trusts in my mercy is the happiest, for I myself take care of her." Isn't that something that resonates with any heart seeking hope? Writing the diary was not a simple task. Faustina faced doubts, insecurities, and often the feeling that she was not worthy of this mission. But she persevered, always certain that she was being guided. This example is a powerful lesson. Sometimes, what seems impossible or incomprehensible to us can transform into an eternal legacy when done with faith. Over time, the diary became one of the most important mystical texts of the 20th century. It offers a profound glimpse into Faustina's spiritual life and is an invitation for all to reflect on divine mercy. But at that time, the real impact of the diary was yet to come. After all, what she wrote within the convent walls still needed to reach the world. Institution of the Divine Mercy Devotion. Sister Faustina's visions and writings began to transform into a movement in 1935, when she was about 30 years old. It was in this year that Jesus revealed to her the need for a feast dedicated to his mercy. He asked that Divine Mercy Sunday be celebrated on the second Sunday of Easter. The idea was simple yet revolutionary: a special day to remind the world that divine mercy is infinite and always within reach. In one of the most remarkable visions, Jesus instructed Faustina to create an image representing his mercy. With the help of artist Eugeniusz Kazimirowski, the first image was painted in 1934, based on Faustina's descriptions. The painting shows Jesus with two rays coming out of his heart, one red, representing blood, and the other pale, symbolizing water. This image, known as the Merciful Jesus, became a central icon of devotion. Have you ever noticed how an image can convey something so deep and spiritual? The official approval of this devotion by the Church was a slow process. After Faustina's death in 1938, her revelations faced skepticism, and the Divine Mercy devotion was even banned for a time. However, in the 1960s, the cause gained momentum, especially due to the support of a young Polish archbishop named Karol Wojtyla, who would later become Pope John Paul II. This support was crucial for the spread of the devotion. Decades later, Pope John Paul II not only approved the devotion but also officially institutionalized it. In 2000, he declared Divine Mercy Sunday a liturgical feast for the entire Church. Furthermore, when inaugurating the Holy Year of Mercy in 2016, Pope Francis reinforced the connection with Faustina's writings, showing that her message was not just for her time, but for all generations. Sufferings and unshakable faith. Sister Faustina's life was marked not only by heavenly visions, but also by profound suffering. Imagine carrying a divine mission while facing misunderstandings, criticisms, and even doubts within your own religious environment. This was exactly what Faustina experienced. Many questioned the authenticity of her visions and her diary, attributing her experiences to delusions or an overactive imagination. These criticisms could have silenced someone with less faith, but Faustina remained steadfast. In addition to spiritual difficulties, her health began to deteriorate severely in 1936, when she was only 31 years old. Diagnosed with tuberculosis, an incurable disease at the time, Faustina faced intense physical pain. Nevertheless, she offered her suffering as a form of intercession for humanity. In her words, "Suffering is the greatest school of love." Have you ever thought about how powerful that perspective is? Transforming pain into an act of love? The Church's support was also limited at that time. While some confessors and superiors believed in her, others treated her with skepticism. This mix of acceptance and rejection constantly tested her patience and humility. It's like trying to navigate choppy waters without losing course. And Faustina did so with impressive serenity. Her weakened health culminated in her premature death on October 5, 1938, at the age of 33, the same age at which Jesus was crucified. Although her passing was quiet, the impact of her life and her messages was just beginning to unfold. Despite so many challenges, Faustina left a legacy that transcended her human fragility, proving that sometimes God's instruments are shaped in the greatest adversities. Recognition, beatification, and canonization. Decades after her death, the Church began to recognize the depth and authenticity of Faustina's mission. In 1965, the Archbishop of Krakow, Karol Wojtyla, the future Pope John Paul II, initiated the process of Faustina's beatification. It's fascinating to think how someone who faced so much resistance during her life was finally being understood. The process culminated on April 18, 1993, when she was beatified by the same pope who, years earlier, had believed in her message. But that was just the beginning. On April 30, 2000, Faustina Kowalska was canonized by Pope John Paul II, becoming the first saint of the new millennium. During the ceremony, he declared, "It is important that we accept the entire message that comes from the Word of God for this second Sunday of Easter, which from now on will be called Divine Mercy Sunday." This canonization was more than a personal recognition. It was a call for humanity to rediscover trust in divine mercy. The canonization also brought validation to Faustina's diary and revelations. The Church, which had previously hesitated, now embraced her message as a legitimate path to spirituality. The connection between Pope John Paul II and Faustina also strengthened the devotion to divine mercy worldwide. Isn't it incredible to think how two poles, at such different times, contributed to transforming global Catholic spirituality? From then on, Faustina's impact grew exponentially. Her life, so simple and humble, had reached the pinnacle of recognition in the Catholic Church. But her legacy did not end there. On the contrary, her canonization was a springboard for something even greater, a global movement of faith and mercy that continues to resonate to this day. Legacy and impact on the Church. Saint Faustina Kowalska is remembered as the apostle of divine mercy, and her message has transcended borders and generations. Today, millions of people worldwide pray the chaplet of divine mercy, inspired by the prayers she recorded in her diary. This chaplet is more than a devotional practice. It is an invitation for the faithful to trust in God's infinite mercy, even in the most challenging moments. After all, who hasn't needed a gesture of mercy in their own life? The Divine Mercy Novena, starting on Good Friday, has become one of the most popular practices among Catholics. This devotion reflects the centrality of mercy in Christian spirituality, something Faustina understood deeply. And who can forget the image of the merciful Jesus, present in churches, homes, and chapels around the world? It has become a symbol of hope for those facing difficulties. But Faustina's impact goes beyond devotional practices. Her life and messages continue to inspire books, films, and even movements within the church. Her message resonates especially in times of crisis, reminding us that mercy is a path to reconciliation and peace. It's as if she planted a seed that blossoms whenever the world needs a reminder of God's unconditional love. Finally, Saint Faustina's spirituality remains as relevant today as it was in her time. In a world full of quick judgments and divisions, her message is an invitation to look at others and ourselves with eyes of mercy. This legacy challenges us to be more humane and compassionate, a lesson that continues to echo in every chaplet, every venerated image, and every heart touched by Faustina's message. Conclusion. Have you ever stopped to think about the power that mercy has to transform lives? Saint Faustina showed the world that even in the darkest moments, God always offers us a way out, a chance to start over. Now it's your turn. How can you apply this message of mercy in your life? Have you been as compassionate with yourself as you are with others? Imagine the transformation you can experience if you start living with full confidence in God's love. What would change in your daily life if you saw difficult situations as opportunities to trust more in divine mercy? Faustina's story is more than a religious lesson. It's a life lesson. A lesson about the power to forgive, to restart, to trust. If you want to continue learning more about this legacy of faith and mercy, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Join us so we can explore more stories and teachings that change our lives forever. Let's walk together on this journey of faith and discovery.